Need a little spark to brighten up your day? I know I do. Well, meet the new Thrive all-in-one vape from Curio Wellness. It's a 1 gram all-in-one vape pen from their Best Self collection, which is coming out soon. Blending THC with carotene, limonene, and linalool for that perfect lemon lift. Imagine crisp citrus with a hint of pine. It's all in a portable, rechargeable pen that's ready when you are. So if you're looking for your daily spark, Thrive, it's got you covered. Basically, it's your new favorite sidekick, like Brandon for me. Check it out, everybody. Thrive, all-in-one vape from Curio Wellness.
Hey, Timmy Two-Step.
Brandon, it's 2026.
Looking very handsome.
Oh, thanks, bud.
It's
I was thinking of switching up colors this year.
It's a whole new world.
I'm going deep into the grayscale this year. I think I'm off to a good start. I wish I could wear what you wear. I'm just not cool like that. Pretty bland.
I'm going to have to buy you a whole set of just bright and shiny colors. Let my kids buy your wardrobe for a year.
Oh yeah, please. What's going on, man? How's the year starting? I know we are going to get into a little bit of how 2025 ended, but how is your personal 2026 starting?
Everything's great. Super excited about 2026. One of the big differences that we're doing professionally is Greenway is still going to be Missouri centric and primarily Missouri focused, but we are not only covering Missouri anymore. With the number of out-of-state businesses we have in Missouri as brand partners and facility operators and things like that, as well as the number of Missouri-based companies that have operations or companies that have significant presence in Missouri. When you think of Good Day, they have more facilities in Missouri than they do in any other state. When you think of Curio, they now have fully vertical operations in Missouri, C3 with high profile and cloud cover and platinum, and their brand partnerships. Companies like that, Elevate operates in multiple states. Even Franklin's, we talked to Michael Wilson recently. They have branding partnerships in multiple states. And so with companies like Amaze and Show Me Organics moving into Kentucky, with Illicit having operations in New Jersey, it just makes sense for us to not focus only on Missouri now. We can still be Missouri centric. We can kind of be like Coca-Cola. Everybody knows that Coca-Cola is Atlanta roots and Georgia based and stuff like that. But now we don't have to turn away anyone. We can tell everybody's stories, and I'm hoping that allows us, a little bit more depth and a little bit more breadth, and helps us more effectively cover Missouri businesses and Missouri companies, because they have interests in other states as well. And I thought a big part of opening the doors to that for Greenway was the podcast last year. We talked to a lot of people from national companies or companies with brand representation in multiple states. So that's a big development for us. We've always been very, hey, we're only Missouri. And now we're going to kind of open the door and do a little bit more outside of Missouri as well.
Well, and the interesting thing is, we're kind of in the, if you love them, you have to let them go phase, because we have a lot of Missouri cannabis business people that are branching out with the Missouri companies. Maddie Piercy, friend of the show, is now with Show Me Organics in Kentucky. So we're seeing more situations like that where Missouri people that built a career here with Missouri brands are starting to lead the charge outside of Missouri with those Missouri-based brands. So that's cool. I love it, dude. That's a great idea.
And that it's kind of the inverse of what we saw in, 2018, 2019, whenever companies were being built in Missouri for licensing. They were bringing in people that were originally from Missouri or were from other states that got their got their start in Colorado or California or somewhere like that. And then they come to Missouri to set up operations, and then they either eventually go back home or that's their new adoptive state. And so, good luck to Maddie. Good luck to Show Me Organics. Good luck to Amaze and Illicit and all of our friends that have operations in other states now. 2025 was, bon voyage, and we lost a few along the way. Pour some out for one's homies. For some of the brands and companies that are no longer in Missouri, some of the people that are no longer part of the industry and space and things like that. But we ended the year really strong. We ended with our second most profitable retail month. Well, I say profitable. I don't know. I don't know your margins, my guy.
Right.
You could run a really, really great business or a really, really shitty business. All I know is retail sales were their second highest of the year, off by only about $300,000 between May 2025 and December 2025. We did do our highest single month volume in adult use recreational sales, coming in just under 118 million for the month of December 2025, and we surpassed the 1.5 billion mark in annual sales in 2025. Our cumulative sales across the life of, goodness gracious, got a little bubbles.
Are you okay?
Too much water this morning.
You okay? A little seltzer? Just
got a little hiccupy action going. I'll make it through. I'll tough it out. But cumulative sales came in at 4.92. So we're again about $4.92 billion. About 80 million off from hitting about 80 million off from hitting $5 billion over the course of the program. But I mean, like, one point, going back to the launch of adult use, we're looking at 1.3, 1.4, 1.5 in successive years. So 1.33, 1.46, 1.51 in successive years. So we should be probably around that 1.5, 1.6 pretty consistently. Unless we see even more of an influx. We did see some more licenses awarded recently. We saw some more expansion on the micro business side. We now have another micro business dispensary in the state.
We sure do.
We have a handful of wholesalers. Those are both super exciting developments. And so, we're poised to see a lot of interesting things in 2026 this year. Legislatively, there's a lot more action in the Missouri legislature than I think most people, myself included, expected. With the federal regulations on hemp and the changes to rescheduling, I did not really expect there to be a ton of activity. And at pre-filing, we had 5 or 6 bills in the House and 5 or 6 bills in the Senate, and legislative session started yesterday in Missouri, January 7th. So as of yesterday, there was about double that number in both the House and the Senate. Some of the ones that there's a lot of stuff related to hemp, but one of the things that I found most interesting was a constitutional amendment related to the advertising and promotion of marijuana sales. And we had talked a little bit at the end of the interview with Mullins about that and what that could mean, because Missouri is not the most lenient with advertising right now as it exists, but most of our qualms have come over packaging design and things like that. What this would mean would be that instead of being no more restrictive than alcohol, it would be no more restrictive than tobacco. What that would mean is no billboards, no magazine ads, no television ads, all the places you can't and don't see, ads for cigarettes are places you would no longer see ads for.
Okay.
Yeah. And so it would be potentially a whole different ball game were that passed. But that's also a constitutional amendment. It's not going to happen in the legislature. They're going to have to, propose that and then put it on a ballot. But it's an election year, so there will probably be lots of stuff put on ballots this year.
Yeah. We also have cool new brands coming into Missouri from outside. Jeter just dropped here in Mo.
Jeter's been doing well.
Yeah, through Elevate. There's a cool company out of Arizona called Superfog that's coming into Missouri here in the next couple months. Can I ask a stupid question? Is Jeter
there's
Derek Jeter?
No, it's not.
That would be so smart. Because then you could have like little one hitters.
That's pure genius.
Sorry.
No, I wasn't being poo about that.
I honestly thought maybe
I think
he dabbled. I don't know.
I think that's very genius. Interestingly, that we're talking about Derek Jeter and sports and stuff. There are a handful of celebrity brands that are going to be coming into Missouri this year. Or reestablishing their presence more so, I think, would be a better way to put that. And then you were talking about brands you were excited for. They came out last year, but didn't make the same impression that I think a lot of people thought they would. I'm really excited for Bodega Boys expanding more of their lineup and their roster in Missouri.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
I'm a big fan of a lot of their products, and their partnership with Opus is great.
Mm-hmm.
We have a couple things. The best of the industry is in full swing right now. Voting is going on, and it's always nice to see some of the best of the industry type information and stuff. One of the things I wanted to look at, or that caught my attention, was the comparison to our top brands versus what was nominated in best of the industry as the best flower or best products. And so our top the Greenway top 10 cultivars in Missouri, as decided by nominees. We take our lists from our nominations list. Apples and Bananas, number 7 from Robust. These are in alphabetical order by cultivar name. So we're Blissful Wizard by Curio Wellness. Never heard of that brand before. Have no idea. Curious Wellness, curiously good. I'm doing curiously well. Blueberry Muffin, which is one of my favorite cultivars by Sense, makes a return to the list. Showtime by Farmer G. Big fan of Agrigenesis and those boys up there. Laser Wolf, which I just, that's the coolest name in my opinion by Flora Farms. Flora is one of those that consistently shows up on any list of best cultivars that we've ever had. Skunk Muffins from New Thera made the list. Mule. I may need you to read this one.
Mule Fuel. Belushi's
from Belushi's. Cherry Runts from Local Cannabis Company. They've just been dominating the flower category the last couple years, whether it's in nominations, whether it's in votes, whether it's in the little cannabis cups or the connoisseur pack championships that Aaron puts together, things like that. They've just been all over the place. RKO from Vibe, which is one of my favorite
was that Rick as well. Kimson oil?
No, it's actually
Sorry, what
named
does it stand for?
after a son of St. Louis, who may or may not come out of nowhere with that cultivar.
Really? Okay. I'm gonna have to look into that.
It's Harvey Orton. It's a blend of his favorite cultivars.
Oh, okay. Yeah, got it.
Hey,
I like it.
That's the word on the street.
Yeah.
I don't know what their wellness policy says anymore, so I don't want anybody to get in trouble or anything.
I don't want to get in trouble with that.
My understanding from my understanding is that it was created using a blend of his favorite cultivars, and then Sherbaccio. I'm real bad with
Sherbaccio.
Sherbaccio.
Yeah, let's go with that.
We're gonna have to get double confirmation on double secret confirmation on how to pronounce that one. But from Daybreak, and
that makes sense.
That is, do
you feel like you're missing somebody?
Align with the top. There's a bunch of brands that are normally nominated that are not on there. Vivid's not on there this year. Proper's not on there this year. Illicit's not on there this year. And it's interesting because you look at the flower numbers, and some of those line up with the top brands in the state as far as sales, but some of them don't. And so I always find it interesting to see what people say their favorite is, as opposed to what the things are that are
that's interesting,
getting the most money spent on it.
Yeah, that makes sense. I've gone in and looked for the cheapest. I've gone in and looked for what's on sale, regardless if it's my favorite or not. Times are tough out there. It's hard out there for a pimp these days, big time.
Is it?
But yeah.
It seems like it might be easy. Hey, we need to step back for a second and take a word from our sponsor, and then we'll be right back with our friend George Jage of MJM Pack.
Okay.
Hey guys, do I have news for you? Quick heads up, Kind Goods just opened their 6th location in Maryland Heights, right off 270 on Dorset, and the place is a vibe. They're Missouri's OG deli-style dispensary, so you can actually walk in, see the flower, look at it, maybe get a sniff, talk to the people who really know their stuff, and shop without any pressure. Take your time, figure out what you want. The store's super welcoming, the staff's amazing, the selection is huge, and it just makes the whole experience easy. You know I love it easy. So if you're in the area, you're heading toward a show, swing by the new Kind Goods on Dorset. Let them know that we sent you. Tell them Greenway Audio Magazine. Good vibes, great products. You'll get it as soon as you walk in. Check out Kind Goods.
Welcome back to Greenway Audio Magazine. I am Tim, and with me is Brandon. But today we have one of our favorites, starting third baseman for the MJ Unpack one-hitters, George Jage, everybody, number 7.
Thank you, guys.
Number 7 in the jersey, number 1 in the heart.
Yes, that's right.
Thank you.
Co-founder of MJ Unpacked and Jage Media, of course.
How are you? Fantastic, gentlemen. Man, what a finish to 2025. And I feel like drinking from the fire hose right out of the gate, day one. Yes. Welcome to cannabis.
That's right. That's right.
Did something happen at the end of 2025?
A little bit. Yeah. So, well, I mean, as you guys know, in addition to MJ Unpacked, we produced the Hemp Beverage Expo. You saw McConnell's minions shut down the hemp industry effectively, shuttering in a year. Lots of movement and politicking going on right now around that. And then obviously the executive order. And we'll see how this all plays out. I mean, there's still a lot of questions to be answered, right?
New year, old friends, touching on the things that we kind of closed out the end of the year with last year. we knew that you were launching the Hemp Beverage Expo, and you guys had your first iteration. It seemed to go well, seemed to be successful. Where does that go? Where does that industry look to right now, as far as what are they telling you, and what are you hearing? Moving forward.
Well, we had plans to hold 2 hemp beverage expos next year. Obviously, states like Missouri have completely banned hemp derived products, and I've always been kind of a little bit conflicted, but certainly diametrically opposed to having a parallel marketplace that has completely different set of rules in the cannabis industry, and people being forced to have a $200,000 security system in a 1,000 square foot retail, and paying 30 to 50% premiums on insurance, banking, all sorts of services, rents, based on artificially perceived risk associated with it. I mean, and a $15 an hour retail worker basically putting their life at risk every single day they go into work. So I mean, that has to come to some type of resolution or conflict resolution. The reason I engage with the hemp beverage industry is because I've always believed that cannabis, if we can replace the intoxicant and not the social lubrication that we've had for millennia around drinking libations and getting intoxicated to help people have sex, come up with new ideas, whatever it is that alcohol helps them do. Cannabis is a far safer, in my opinion, intoxicant, both societally and physically, to human health. And that market isn't really kind of targeting the traditional cannabis consumer. I mean, you and I will go, the three of us will go in a dispensary. We're looking for specific strains. A lot of the market still remains value shoppers, so they want to get the highest amount of THC for the lowest potent or the lowest price. I shop on quality. I specific effects. Like, I love my dad weed. I think I've shared with you guys before in the past, kind of that low teen THC with maybe a 8-10% CBD in it. Love it because it just makes me feel good and I'm not over my skis. But the report that the MOCAN produced, I mean, I think was very eye-opening to a lot of people. And it's a number of factors contributed to kind of that market's demise. I think one of the biggest one was the bad actors, right? And when you see people basically duplicating to a T package of troll gummy worms and slapping a THC label on there and selling it at a gas station, I mean, that's criminal at worst. But those people should be probably taken out back and beaten. And they're just causing harm to society without any care or liability whatsoever. And I think that we don't need THCA flower because we can grow better cannabis flower. I don't think we need to create extracts. We absolutely do not need any type of chemically derived synthetic, the THC. I mean, I've talked to people that have gotten very sick. People in the cannabis industry have gotten very sick from some of the compounds that they're finding in these vape cartridges and gummies that are derivatives that are chemically derived, compounds. No testing for residual chemicals in there. No explanation of what chemicals are used. That stuff's all dangerous for, I mean, it's flies in the face of any type of consumer safety and consumer protection. Obviously, the lack of age gating around it. So, I think all in all, I mean, I like the beverage space because, it's not you and me, the three of us that are going into the dispensary and saying, oh, we're going to have a beverage today. No, it's people that are going in to buy some wine or some beer for the weekend. They're going into Total Wine and Spirits, going into Sprouts, going into Circle K at the end of a long shift on a Friday. Instead of grabbing a 16-ounce tall boy, they're grabbing a can of cannabis. And I love that because it makes people feel better and it's good for them. It's not, poisoning their liver. So, but from a market standpoint, they basically were given a year to sunset the industry. And what they did is they extended that kind of 0.4% THC in the dry flower, according to the original farm bill that people, quote unquote exploited, and everybody's got their opinions on that stuff. but basically extended that to 0.4 milligrams per package, right? So that basically, like, nobody's going to go to get buzzed if it's got 0.01% alcohol in it, right? You're going to have to drink a hell of a lot of beer to get buzzed, and I think people want that experience. They want that relaxation and that euphoria that intoxicants can provide us. But it's I think that there's a market for it. The alcohol manufacturers don't like this. Discus, which represents a good part of the bourbon and whiskey industry in Kentucky, is very strong for that. I believe they're making some donations to Mitch McConnell's memorial library or whatever. But they were certainly very influential in lobbying against and closing this loophole. The wholesalers and retailers in the alcohol space love this. I mean, you see in some stores saying that they're getting 25-30% of their total store volume sales are from THC drinks. And certainly the THC drink manufacturers love this stuff. But why are they using this hemp with 0.4% THC to extract the molecule when we could have a far more efficient process if they were able to do that from more robust strains in the cannabis industry? So we'll see how this all plays out. I mean, there's a lot of people that have shared information with me. I mean, that seem to believe that there is something on the horizon with the current administration that will fix the problems with them shutting down the industry entirely. And the people that hurts them, the most, or I think who have the most power in that argument, are the hemp farmers and the veterans and medical patients that are using it for epilepsy and other products, for the CBD products, the Charlotte Web strains and others that have had tremendous impacts on people's lives. I think the general rule of thumb in politics was always don't fuck with veterans and don't fuck with farmers. I don't know if there's rules anymore in politics, but
No.
Hopefully there'll be something there. But again, it doesn't resolve the conflict between cannabis and hemp. You can't have two parallel industries with two sets of rules. So I'd love to see hemp get upregulated, and I'd love to see cannabis get downregulated. There's some people out there, as working on things like the One Plant Alliance to try to unify the industry. And quite frankly, that might be our biggest weakness, is that we're not unified as an industry.
One of the main problems with not being unified as an industry is that the people, there are still people that operate under the tomato theory, that cannabis should be treated like a tomato plant. Okay. And the reality is that's never going to fly.
Say more. Like, what do you mean, like the tomato plant? Like, I should be able to grow it at home. I should go to the produce department.
Yeah, 100%. That's the tomato plant theory, is that you should a cannabis plant should be regulated exactly the same as a tomato plant. If you want to grow it at home, you can grow it. If you want to sell it at a farmer's market, you can sell it. If you want to buy it from a grocery store or from a gas station, anywhere you could potentially. And the problem with that is that tomatoes aren't intoxicating.
Yeah, I was just going to say, it's an agricultural product all day long. I get that, but again, you're talking about
100%. And that's the whole problem, and that's the reason that state after state after state implemented all these regulations on intoxicating hemp, was because it's not a tomato plant. It's an intoxicating product. And so whether it's tobacco, whether it's alcohol, whether it's medication, I mean, we even have to get Sudafed from behind the counter nowadays because of the potential of intoxicating effects and what it contributes to. I didn't have to watch Breaking Bad. I grew up in Southeast Missouri, my friend.
Might be Missouri's fault.
We had a lot of folks walking around looking like they just ate a bunch of Oreos, is all I'm going to say. So,
double stuff.
And so that's the duality of the cannabis industry, is it should all be treated the same, but whenever you have one side consistently resisting against practical regulation, it's really hard to get that aligned with the other side that's like, okay, we're okay with practical regulation, we're okay with these things because we're just trying to move the needle forward from zero. and sometimes you have to sacrifice perfection for progress. And that's the problem, is that a lot of times the people that are really great advocates for cannabis as a plant are not great advocates for progress, because they're unwilling to accept that other people have opinions. They're unwilling to accept compromise. They're unwilling to accept that 3% forward is better than 0% for 75 years. And that's really kind of where that gets lost a lot of times. Is Missouri had a market in hemp since technically since 2018, but especially since 2021, where it was legal. Now, I'm not saying everyone would do it or anyone would do it, but it was legal for you to sell a 4-year-old marijuana gum, in essence, marijuana gummies, THC gummies that were 3,000, 5,000, a billion milligrams, if you could figure out how to put that in the package. There were no limits, no rules, no regulations. Not only was it legal to sell that, but you didn't have any kind of requirements. And whenever you don't self-police for a long enough period of time, you wind up in a situation where someone eventually is going to police you, and they're not going to take your input.
Sure. And I think that gets to kind of somewhat of the failure of leadership in our industry, I think, and maybe unification. You've got a number of trade associations that, quite honestly, are funded by the largest companies in the space, because they're the ones who have the extra capital to fund them. And they're going to lobby and work on the benefit of their members, as they should, as an association. But it doesn't represent the entirety of the class. And I think a majority of the industry, and certainly probably 3 to 5 times the number of retail doors that all the MSOs have combined, are independent operators. So I think that we need to have some leadership to really unite the industry in that way. But again, I think that, going back to, some of this is the bad actors, right? And, I have a very good friend that called me up and said, hey, I got a question for you. My husband and I do gummies a couple times a year when we don't have the kids. We were staycationing at a hotel. My husband went to the store, bought some gummies. He had one. I had like 2/3. 5 hours later, we're in the back of an ambulance, and I thought I was going to die. And I said, well, what's the question? And she's like, can I go and ask the dispensary to pay for my medical bills? I said, well, where do you live? And she said, Georgia. And I said, you don't have any dispensaries. So send me a picture of the store and the product. And it was 100 milligram gummy, sold at the CBD Superstore, and probably some 16, 17-year-old store clerk that certainly isn't trained or have any experience to give proper advice. Like, hey, if you've never done this before, I'm a pretty frequent user, and I ain't touching 100 milligram gummy.
And that's 100% the danger of unlimited, unfettered access, is that cannabis is still so new to the consumers. It would be one thing if we were talking about uniform federalization further down the road, where we've had a chance to implement everything. But the biggest flaw with what happened was that we essentially legalized intoxicating cannabis with no filters, no stepstones, no here's what you're getting into, and no transition plan. And the people that tried it for the first time had so many various different experiences. Some of them it was great for. Some of them went in and got a package of gummies that was 5,000 milligrams, 500 milligrams a piece for a 10-pack, and were just told to walk out the door 100%. And take one and have a good time.
I had that experience too. I had, people ask, when did I get in the cannabis industry? And I always usually joke, like 15, 16 years old, when I had an herbal distribution business in high school and college. And, and I liked to smoke pot when I was younger. And it certainly, I think, for me, and I think a lot of people, it's like it takes away some of that social awkwardness. It kind of creates a tribe, because you're people that kind of share this commonality around weed. Made me feel good, right? And it didn't make me feel stupid or hungover or other things. So after that, I graduated, started some businesses. Weed wasn't easily accessible to me. It made me kind of like, hard for me to focus if I smoked it. So fast forward, I get in the weed industry. I was hired to take over that small publication, MMJ Business Daily, and turn it into MJ BizCon, MJ Biz Daily. But I went up to Denver. I went to Ian Sieb's dispensary and I bought a gram of weed, and I twisted a spliff and, mixed it with some tobacco so it wouldn't put me too over my skis. I literally took 2 hits. I went to maybe 3 hits. I went to the airport and I'm like holding onto the moving walkway railing going, somebody better slow this down before somebody gets hurt, right? I was stoned out of my fucking mind. I had to go find a gate that was unoccupied and hide in the corner for a couple hours, even before I could go and board the plane. And it's just back then it was like everybody was racing to the bathtub gin, right? And again, this is why I'm a big advocate of dad weed. This is where weed was when we were younger. It was in that, mid-teen range of THC so that people could have a nice experience without, being completely, out of their skull. People build up tolerances, certainly, active users are going to have a tolerance to that stuff. So you can smoke higher strains, and I enjoy that too, but I'm not going to smoke, a ton of stuff that's in the high 20s or low 30s. So I think that, we need to have a product that is manageable to the consumer, a little bit more information to them, a bigger variety of products available. Get back to our roots of, having this biodiverse cannabinoid mix in the plants, not just hey, how much THC can this thing kick out? And have that entourage effect. That's where the plant shines.
We talk a little bit about politics because, of course, regulation stems from politics and stuff, but we don't talk a lot about federal politics because generally that's a pretty divisive issue. But you mentioned the executive order. You mentioned the executive order propelling forward the rescheduling of cannabis. Of marijuana specifically. One of the best things to come out of that, especially since we're talking about hemp right now, is the directive for Medicaid to start paying for CBD when it's prescribed for seniors. And I think that creates it does 2 things. One, it allows for the hemp industry to know that there's a way forward, even separate from intoxicating hemp products and things like that, because now they're opening the door to where your products can be paid for by insurance. That's a whole different ball game, and that allows for the hemp industry to have a successful transition. But in addition to that, for companies that go down that road, this also opens the door for more consumers and more education and all the things that we were just saying we wish we had. This is the way we get those, is by allowing doctors the opportunity to talk about cannabis as a legitimate medicine. Because once you learn about cannabinoids and you learn about CBD and you learn about your endocannabinoid system and things like that, then you're going to go down the education route. And my hope is that that's the thing that kind of pivots cannabis in the direction of wine in the 80s and 90s, where we go from, only certain people know about this and you just have to trust them, to, every mom knows the difference between a Cabernet and a Sauvignon and a Blanc, and why champagne's only from Champagne, France, and things like that.
Well, listen, seniors tend to love weed. Generally speaking, not everybody does, but one, they're part of the baby boomer generation that, experienced more kind of cultural revolutions and initiated more cultural revolutions than any living generation today. And so, they're familiar with marijuana and weed, ganja, whatever they called it in their day. But, the arthritis, I'm not a spring chicken anymore. Sometimes it hurts in the morning when I get up, and, those creams, those salves, the CBD products, the other minor cannabinoids that can really help people with sleep and other ailments that aren't necessarily used to get high, but to feel better, right? And again, this goes back to this is plant medicine. So, and you're also seeing, kind of on the bookends of generational bookends, the younger generation and the older generation are moving away from alcohol. I've got a son that's in college and I got a daughter in high school, and I think that they are more prone to, consume cannabis. Unfortunately, they all want to probably self-diagnose ADHD and get on Ritalin, but, that's another story for another time. I think that a lot of the trends are like, this should be normalized and everything else. So, but I forget the exact number. I mean, it's basically a couple $1 billion of capital if, all of the people that are senior citizens that are on Medicaid would spend $500 a year on CBD products. Yeah, they're talking about reimbursing. And I think that that's the initial benchmark, if I'm not mistaken. I think there was some discussion about increasing that in subsequent years.
Can I ask you a couple questions? First off, I just realized I haven't talked in 30 minutes because I've been watching two brilliant minds talk about things way above my,
Tim, nice to join
brain.
Us today.
Hey, everybody.
It's the Brendan and George show.
Okay, so here's a question. So as far as like Medicaid and covering CBD and everything, and that's great if it ends up happening, but I mean, I've seen things. Recently, I watched 60 Minutes on this Dr. Peter Attia. He's a Stanford doctor, and backed away from the medical side because all he was doing was helping people in their dying window. And he's like, what can I do to make sure they don't get to that phase or to extend their life? I want to focus on that part. So, they were asking him, when you were, studying to be a doctor, how many hours did you, were you taught about exercise and nutrition? He said 0. So when you look at these, doctors and Medicaid and CBD now, do they even have the knowledge?
No.
Because it feels like they're not taught. So they got to do it. They got to do the research themselves. And so now good. This would be step one. But, I've talked to nurses and doctors that didn't know an endocannabinoid system was a thing. They weren't taught about anything like that. So I like that the door is opening, but I feel like it's going to be a while before the medical community fully understands this. Yeah. Am I off base here, or is that?
I mean, I've talked to all of my primary care physicians. I usually ask them what their position is on cannabis. Yeah. I'm very curious, and I mean, part of it is one, they don't have an education. They're not trained in that way, as you just said. But I mean, like, how do you, as a physician, prescribe something called alien green crack? I mean,
right.
Again, like, I think, the consumer product,
Alaska Thunderfuck for your knee pain.
Right. I mean, again, Aliens on Moonshine, one of my favorite strains out here in Washington. It's just, it's so, again, I think, I've looked at that model in the past. I mean, is there an opportunity to, have peer-reviewed journals on cannabis, which we're seeing in the space, but offering continuing education credits. I mean, if I'm a doctor, honestly, and I know I need to go get continuing education credit or a registered nurse, like, hell yeah, I'm going to go to the one that I get, like, check out all the weed, right? Like, I mean, I think most doctors, I mean, listen, they're Hippocratic oath, to help people and kind of reduce their pain. I mean, clearly we have tools here that, artificial obstacles have been placed in front of. This is a huge step. I mean, like, think about the reality that the executive order that, going back to that, was the most significant federal action on cannabis since Nixon created the Controlled Substance Act. Period. Right. And so, there's a lot of speculation of how this is all going to break down. Fears that the FDA is going to get involved, or is it Howard or Harry Kessler that's running these trials at senior citizen facilities that are government sanctioned, wants to monopolize the industry, or, I mean, there's all sorts of theories around how this is going to break down. But The reality is we clearly have, precedent and regulatory structures in all these state markets. So I don't think that the federal government's looking at this as saying that we want to get, over involved, and everybody's like, hey, we're going to get rid of 280E. We have no idea if the federal government's going to slap a big ass excise tax on this. And so it might be a wash. I mean, the government has not notoriously been willing to give tax breaks and money back to vice industries, just tech bros.
Yeah. I was waiting for
So one of the things that you mentioned, a couple different things. One, I think the FDA is definitely going to play a huge role in the cannabis industry over the next few years. There's nothing that you can go in and buy somewhere that's a Schedule 3 product that hasn't gone through all the same processes as every other FDA regulated drug, or even nutraceuticals have more restrictions than and vitamins have more restrictions than marijuana right now. Like, it's going to have to happen. Labs are going to,
right? Like, I mean, they had to fight tooth and nail to get those things to where they were in the natural product space. But continue, sir. I'm sorry.
No, absolutely. But the labs are going to have to be updated. The processes are going to have to be updated. There's going to be a huge expense for most marijuana companies where they sit today versus what's going to be required in a few years if all of this goes through the way that everyone's expecting it to right now. Now, to your point about education, I don't believe it's going to be continuing education. I believe that we're going to start to see cannabis pharma reps. You're going to see people making appointments to go into doctors' offices and tell them about their brand of CBD or their brand of cannabis oils and salves and things like that. And they're going to educate about the endocannabinoid system. They're going to educate about CBD and other terpenes and other cannabinoids while they're there. And that's going to bridge the gap, especially in states like Missouri or other states with both adult use and medical products, where that's who's truly educating the doctors on both what they can prescribe and what their patients are actually using. And I think that's going to be the quickest and most efficient way. If I owned a medical marijuana company or an adult use marijuana company that had any kind of medical products right now, that's what I would be doing. I would have one of my sales reps or one of my brand ambassadors, instead of wearing a t-shirt and jeans 1 or 2 days a month, I'd have them going out and hitting up 4 or 5 doctors' offices or pain clinics or hospitals. And I wouldn't have them talking about Brandon's, Brandon's spacey baked goods. I'd have them talking about, Dunn Farms, CBD for pain creams and stuff like that, and go in giving out samples and stuff of CBD products, so that you're the first one through the door as everything starts to change.
Yeah. I mean, it'll be interesting to see how the pharmaceutical industry will invest into the space, right? And certainly we know that there's a lot of potential medicine inside the cannabis plant and everything else. But this is ergo the problem is that the pharmaceutical industry notoriously extracts the intelligence and removes the wisdom. And the plant itself, I mean, Tim's feeling a little down. Brandon, you're feeling a little anxious. You guys both smoke the same joint. You'll probably calm down a little bit and Tim will feel a little bit better, right? So the plant kind of knows how to work in your body to kind of meet the needs of the moment. So we'll see what happens. But I mean, I don't think that the FDA can necessarily regulate a botanical plant. They can regulate a compound. They can regulate, a food product, but I don't know if they're going to want to necessarily regulate the plant. And it's one of the most hybridized plants on the planet. Like, how do you kind of, quantify and classify, pot? I mean, there's just such a range, right?
Well, my personal opinion is I think they're going to, on a long enough timeline, I think they're going to push for the removal of smokable flower and smokable products, because there's never been,
We'll just keep pushing
even
cigarettes,
with all the years of, but they don't recommend that from the FDA. That's not considered a health product. That's the problem. That's part of the problem with telling everyone for the last 50 years that marijuana is a medical product, is you can't have it both ways. You can't take a handful of Vicodin.
I was just gonna say, are we gonna have recreational Xanax soon, or what? Like, I mean, because they
so
argue that
while the reality is that there's a lot of substances that are medical products that get used as recreational products, from a Food and Drug Administration perspective, if they're regulating it like medicine, then we're going to see a bunch of changes, because you can't home grow, your steroids. You can't home grow your Vicodin and your Ritalin and things like that. In most states, you can't even cannot even home grow tobacco. And so the reality is that rescheduling is great, from a progress perspective and from a recognition of medical use perspective, but from a cannabis is just a plant, and cannabis is, they've said for years, all use is medical use. Well, again, nobody makes the claim that drinking a 6-pack of beer is medical use. Nobody makes the claim that smoking a pack of cigarettes is medical use. And so you can't have it both ways. It can't be recreational weed if it's medical marijuana. And that's I think the biggest problem that we're going to face with rescheduling, is one way or the other that something has to give.
Isn't that what kratom is like nature's crystal meth?
I think so.
Well, I mean, look at look at heroin that comes from a poppy seed, and how the pharmaceutical exploited opioids to create a massive pandemic and epidemic of drug abuse in our country. So, I mean, yeah, asking the government to fix problems, in my opinion, is, I mean, the industry itself does need to come forward. And it's hard because, again, going back to what I said at the beginning, is like, I mean, maybe one of the issues is that we don't really have a unified, agreement amongst the people in the industry. I mean, there's a disparity between the larger players, the MSOs that, people call corporate cannabis. I mean, there's markets for what they're doing, and they're able to fund and pave ways for things that, smaller operators can't, but there's not any unity amongst the independent operators to really have a voice. And there's really not any leadership on a national level. I mean, with respect to NCIA, I mean, like, if I'm operating a cannabis business in Washington, I'm joining the Cannabis Alliance, not NCIA, because I'm going to get more value out of my state association than I am a national association if we don't have a national market. So, I mean, I think that there's, some layers of issues there, but this is a big step forward. I know there's a lot of people that are very passionate about the plant. I think most of us are, and a good friend of mine said, anybody who comes into this industry for the business leaves an advocate. And seeing the changes and the positive impacts that this can have on people's lives. Not everybody's. Smoking weed is not for everybody, but again, people that have high anxiety, Crohn's disease, glaucoma. I mean, there's tons of benefits to cannabis. I'm concerned about, I don't think that we're going to see this, be rescheduled, and fears that, like, everybody's going to have to go to the pharmacy and it's going to completely devastate all of the cannabis retailers. I just don't see that happening, right? I think that I could probably get a prescription for some marijuana, and it might be suppositories, edibles, or flour, at some point, that I could get because I have a specific medical condition. Like I mentioned, maybe it's Crohn's or glaucoma that this would really benefit me from, and my insurance should cover it because it's progressive healthcare. I think that this, it might have to live in that dichotomy where there's a part of this is regulated as a vice, like nicotine or alcohol, And part of this is regulated as a medicine that is in higher forms of concentration. Maybe there's a federal cap on recreational of THC content, that's maybe capped at 20-25%. Certainly, again, we talked about those 100 milligram gummies that, the hemp industry is kicking out. I mean, there's people from a medical standpoint that want to go get, a journeyman 100 milligram, tincture shot because they need that. I'm not doing that. Because I'm doing it from a recreational basis. But, again, medical patients, there's certain products that they need high doses. Rick Simpson oil, again, I always wanted to try it. I got some from my local dispensary, Skagit Organics, which makes some of the best RSO in the country. I tried some and I'm like, should probably call somebody that has a little more experience with this and see how much I should take. And they said, take like a half a grain of rice. And I said, I just ate a peanut. So I was high for a good 72 hours, mostly in bed, a few bags of chips. Again, there's certain products and certain applications of this that can be used for very, very significant medical benefit. And we need to study it. This Schedule 3 is going to open those doors for research. Be interesting. I mean, our event that's coming up in Atlantic City in New Jersey. New Jersey is the kind of, pharmaceutical, research corridor right there. And my wife, Kim, my business partner, her mom worked in pharmaceutical industry for a long time. So we've been talking to some of her, old colleagues and seeing, where is everybody's head at? What are people talking about? Is there interest in this? Is there going to be investment in this? What do they expect to see those outcomes? We don't know all the answers yet, and we're just kind of, straw polling around the market. But, those are the things that I think are going to really give us the insights to see where this market goes. And I think that there is a bifurcated market where it's medical or it's, recreational. But I don't think that there is a bifurcated place for a bifurcated market where you have hemp or cannabis, right? This is still all coming from the same plant. The hemp definition that the government, created in their benevolent wisdom of saying that this is the cannabis plant that has 0.4% THC by dry weight, that's not defining hemp. There's obviously, subspecies and strains that, grow in a very stocky, bushy fashion that can be used for, creating a lot of high fiber content, a lot of industrial applications. I don't know if you guys remember, I brought Ralph Nader to MJ BizCon when I was running it. My wife totally had a man crush on him, a crush on him. It wouldn't be a man crush because she's a woman. But he's one of the smartest guys I've ever met. And there was a little risk that people were like, oh, are you worried about bringing Ralph Nader in, after what happened in Florida with the hanging chads and, Gore losing the election? And I'm like, people got to get over shit sooner or later. But he talked about the over 3,000 industrial applications of hemp. And the fact is, it can disrupt multiple trillion-dollar industries. It could disrupt the textile industries, the amount of fast fashion. A lot of the fabrics that we use today are manufactured from non-renewable sources or petroleum-based products. It could certainly paper products. Certainly hemp paper, as we know, was used by our founding fathers to print money with, and has a far longer durability than typical cotton paper or any type of wood pulp paper. Energy industry, certainly hemp seed oil and food from hemp seeds and other benefits from the plant. In the plastics industry, people have developed truly biodegradable plastics from hemp. And back in a previous life, I was launching an event called the Healthy Beverage Expo. And at the time, I think it was Dasani or Coca-Cola came out with their corn-based plastics or whatever, saying that this was biodegradable. And if you read the fine print, it was biodegradable in an industrial compost, and it would still take 10 years, right? That's we need to be able to make stuff that you can literally grind up and throw in your garden and let it grow food that you can then later eat, right? And watched a really cool show the other day. One of the guys from, he was like the senior brand manager at Adidas. And it was a show, I think it's on Amazon, called Buy Now, the consumer conspiracy, about how corporations basically intentionally create, shelf lives to products that could last a lot longer. So you have to buy them. It was actually started by the light bulb industry. where they colluded to basically make the light bulbs, burn out faster, so you'd have, a higher rate of consumables. But like he was working on a project where you literally created a plant-based shoe that you can grind up and throw in your garden.
Well,
that's amazing.
That's the cool part about hemp, is that basically anything that we're using, either cotton or paper or cardboard or particle board, anything like that, hemp can replace any of those things.
Toilet paper.
Yeah,
I actually
build houses with it.
Actually, somebody went online and was like basically throwing shade on us because she said she couldn't come into our show because she's developing a hemp-based toilet paper. I'm like, listen, I said, it's not about that. Like, we're trying to create an event environment at MJ Impact that pre-qualifies this audience to create a greater return on investment for our exhibitors, a greater return on objectives for the people in the room, and then we throw in our little sizzle to create a return on experience. But I told her, I said, listen, I said, we're not targeting a single person who would potentially buy your product. Most likely, right? I mean, certainly some of the dispensaries might want to put hemp-based toilet paper in their stores, but we're not targeting the big, chains or paper companies that would potentially buy our products. I said, but I would love to have your product. We'll put it in every single bathroom. We'll put a little sign up that this is hemp-based, toilet paper. Like, I mean, I think people would enjoy that as an experience for our event that I'd invest in. But I think that those types of products are out there. There's people that are passionate about it. They're trying to make the world a better place and trying to fix some of the scars on the earth that we've created.
Yeah. Well, George, as we wind down yet another amazing
Has it been an hour yet? I feel like I can hang out with you guys all day.
Yeah, I know. Well, so here's my question for you. So, we're expanding. Brandon's expanding his reach and understanding of different markets, but we're kind of siloed in the Missouri market here. As far as your thoughts for the industry as a whole going into 2026, how do you feel? I know it is kind of state by state. You have situations like Michigan where their taxes just went way up. Whatever it is, what's
24% on wholesale.
Potheads for potholes or whatever their thing is to raise taxes.
24% wholesale tax in Michigan now.
Crazy. Well, and how do you see the health of the industry?
Making it a crime to possess cannabis purchased from another state. But I think if you want to talk about shit hitting the fan, which is always a fun topic to talk about. I mean, what's happening in Massachusetts, Maine, and Arizona right now is scary. All three states are collecting signatures to put a ballot initiative forward to its voters this November to basically shut down their recreational cannabis markets in each of those states. And this will be on the ballot. And I was talking to a good friend, a very seasoned leader in the industry, and just kind of having a little bitch fest yesterday. And I mean, it's like she's talking to people that, like, she kind of called them limousine liberals. Don't want to steal her phrase, but like people that were like, in favor of cannabis, but they're like, I go to the ski hill and, I skiing down and I keep running into clouds of weed and I'm taking my kids there and I don't want this shit all over the place. Which, she kind of giggled at because like, you entitled prick. And there's other, there was also an example of a farm that's in a kind of a rural community also in Massachusetts, and the town stinks like weed, and it's like they've done nothing to mitigate the aroma, and so it's only a couple thousand people, but those people are going to vote on the ballot initiative to get rid of this because it's a nuisance. It's a smell nuisance in their town, right? And I think there's a lot of people that there's still a lot of misinformation out there, a lot of propaganda, but I think that a lot of us being advocates for the space are like, freedom's not free. And like, we're going to go out and we're going to blaze our joint and make our statement and everything else. And, come and arrest me. And I'm going to defy the man. I think that, you wouldn't, go into a library and smoke a cigarette. And my wife and I were talking about this too. And she's like, well, like, but alcohol, like it doesn't really, I said, no, but I said, I wouldn't go to a park with my kids where there's a bunch of people slamming, 40s. So I think that, having some discretion around, our behavior as an industry, as consumers, is important as well. And, we got to recognize that this is something that, certainly has an aroma to it and that not everybody enjoys. It has an effect that not everybody enjoys. And that, our freedom is our right to choose to do these things in a libertarian sense of, our personal options. But that doesn't mean that we get to infringe that on other people's personal freedoms of not wanting to have to smell this or see this or have their kids be around it. So I think we got a lot of work to do. But I mean, this is significant. I mean, when we talk about what's going to happen in 2026, I think everybody's got some exuberance and a lot of anxiety and nervousness around rescheduling. This is a step forward, and make no mistake, as I said, this is the most significant, policy change, since we started the Controlled Substance Act. And it's a good landing place because at Schedule 3, still being federally illegal, is going to keep the larger corporations, the alcohol and tobacco companies, from coming in and basically taking over. And it gives a lot of these independent operators that have put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. I mean, they're falling left and right on the side of the road these days. And it's sad to see people, having to shut their doors, not because they weren't running a good business, but the business environment was just too toxic for them to operate. So, I think we have a lot of work to do. And I think that, we got to watch out for what's happening in the shadows and on the state levels, with some of these initiatives to shut down the industry. I mean, that could have a domino effect in other markets.
Absolutely. Well,
you got caught up by my shadow dance.
That was good.
I saw it.
So, George, and we have a.
Oh, and by the way,
and we have
Sesame Street wardrobe department called, and they want their sweater back. Or as you like to say,
there's no shame in my game,
Mr. Rogers sweater on acid.
Yeah.
Yes. So, George, we have an MJ Unpacked coming up here in a few months, right? Atlantic City. Let's talk about it.
So that's going to be May 5th, 6th, and 7th in Atlantic City.
Okay.
For those who came last year, that after party we had on the Steel Pier was the GOAT of all after parties. We do have a mariachi band lined up for our opening night reception, which will be Cinco de Mayo on the show floor. Maybe we'll have some tequila bars set up as well. But we're excited about this, and we're seeing a lot earlier adoption for people signing up to the show. We're twice as far ahead of the game that we were last year. A lot of that's recurring business, but there's a good percentage of new businesses coming into the market. I think there's some excitement and exuberance and optimism that things are going to get better in 2026. For our fall event, I think you guys know, we've been in St. Louis the last 2 years. Love the Union Station Hotel. It's got such character and charm and so iconic in St. Louis there. But we're going to be going to Kansas City. I mean, a big part of the state's market, I think, is probably most vibrant there. We know a good part of the reason, besides the innate large population base of Kansas City, is it's a border state to states that do not have, adult use and recreational cannabis use. So we're excited to go to Kansas City, and we'll be at the Sheraton Crown Plaza, and that show will be October 13th through the 15th. No doubt we'll see you gentlemen there.
Be there. Oh yeah.
I'll have bells on.
Yeah.
I'm holding you to that. If not, I'm going to get you like one of those like reindeer collars that's just got like so we can hear you coming.
Ching, 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 ching. Super excited to have you guys back in Missouri for MJ Unpacked. That's always one of the highlights of the year, and love seeing it on the opposite side of the state this year. Just because I feel like everybody kind of gets stagnant on St. Louis or Kansas City, and so to see it flip-flop and see a lot of the companies that you don't see travel across the state as much, and to see more of the Kansas City brands and Kansas City faces, and get more of the Kansas City experience while you guys are in there, because Kansas City and St. Louis are two very different types of cultures to be within the same state. It's very Houston and Austin, I think, is a
same thing
good
here. I mean, Seattle and Spokane. I mean, I think most states, kind of have like Tucson and Phoenix have a very different vibe. San Francisco and Los Angeles. I mean, there's always kind of that left-right kind of epicenters in most states. So, but I think Kansas City is exciting. And like I said, we've got a great show. We're going to put in the effort and really create a great experience for everybody. Kansas City's been, Missouri itself has been, an interesting state. I mean, when we decided to take our fall event there, I think that we saw a lot of, opportunity in the state. MJ Impact's built to be a national trade platform. There's always going to be a higher percentage of people that are going to participate locally and in state and regionally, secondary, and then across country. But I mean, California, Washington, and Massachusetts have always been some of the top states in attendance at our events. So you see big market states travel. Michigan's, they travel well too. I think one of the challenges I see in Missouri is just the continued consolidation of verticalized operations. And I think that hurts the consumer in the long run because it takes away a lot of product diversity. You have large people that are growing, manufacturing, and selling their own product in their own store. It's creating reciprocal agreements with other stores, so they don't really need to go to market. They've kind of got their built-in outlets. But what it does is it also makes it harder for new innovative brands to come to market and find shelf space at these stores. And offer the consumer, which I think is a benefit, a greater product diversity, right? We don't need to live in a world where, there might be 40 different, sodas down the soda aisle, but it's 3 companies that manufacture all of them, right?
I could talk to you about that all day because the same point you made about new companies also applies to existing companies. If you're a company that's been manufacturing since the early days of medical in Missouri, but you've only been manufacturing, you didn't have cultivation, you didn't have retail, you're now being squeezed out in some cases because other people are starting to replicate the products that you make or the model. And while market compression is always going to happen, there's always going to be the Walmarts, the Dollar Generals, the McDonald's, et cetera, that come in and either buy out the local businesses or force it.
Capital markets are going to reward efficiencies. And again, I mean, having a vertical operation, I mean, to be honest, I think that, the has been, probably a saving grace for a lot of the bigger companies in the space. I mean, to have that type of operational efficiency and not have to, have a middleman in multiple stages of the process looking to, add margin and everything else. So, I mean, it's two double-sided, double-edged sword, as above, so below, as we would say in a more of a Buddhist standpoint. It just is what it is. And so, I mean, I think that, there's got to be a good balance somewhere. I mean, you want to have, I think innovation happens at a more entrepreneurial, smaller, more agile company level and organizational level. Big companies tend to buy innovation. And, we've seen that in the CPG space time and time again. Coca-Cola, somebody like, I think it was Seth Goldman, created Honesty, right? And he sold that to Coca-Cola. And, Tazo Tea, for example, Steve Smith created that, sold it to Starbucks for $3 million, and it became a billion-dollar brand because they put $500 million in the Starbucks retail and $500 million in grocery. And, so.
Same thing with
there's up and down.
Vitamin water and
exactly, Monster and Rockstar and go on and on and on and on and on. That innovation I think is really critical for our industry. Maybe we've over innovated. I don't know. I mean, when you start seeing cannabis infused shrimp chips, I mean, like, is there an end to the innovation?
Let's not poo-poo on some. We don't kink shame here, So we're not gonna yuck somebody's yums. I personally like shrimp chips and crab chips and all of that.
Noted.
we could seriously keep going down this, and honestly, I think what would best serve us is to say that let's bring you back right before you revisit Missouri in October, and let's pick up the conversation and see what George Stradamus's predictions for 2026 have come to fruition.
I've got some additional predictions.
Let's hear it.
My Green Bay Packers are going to beat the Bears this weekend, and then they're going to come to Seattle.
Fuck off.
And they're gonna.
Hey, George, we're having some technical difficulties. We can't hear you over the sound of the cheese graters. So
the Bears.
That was just mean.
So great. You guys are awesome. George, thank you so much.
Just bullying everybody right now.
George, thank you. We'll be back for part 3.
Love both you guys and what you guys are doing.
Yeah, you're awesome.
Having independent media and certainly having a media asset and outlet like yourself that's serving primarily the trade in a market as robust as Missouri. And again, I mean, this is not an easy industry. I mean, people that run PR firms and media assets and trade shows and, travel budgets, advertising budgets, a lot of, PR budgets, those things are getting cut quick because, people need to survive. So, I think that, being able to kind of recapture some of this, onerous and obnoxious tax burden of 280E is going to be significant. I think it's going to take probably the better part of the year before you really start seeing capital returning to markets. I think PE is going to take a longer time. I don't think that they're still quite ready for prime time yet, but certainly, the Safer Banking Act coupled with the rescheduling could bring institutional capital in the market. I think private investment is going to start peeking its head back in the next couple months and continue to increase through the year. So if we don't have water to grow the crops, you can't grow the crops. And the same way we need capital for a growth industry.
I think that's the perfect way to summarize it, and a great way for us to leave off. George Jage, co-founder and CEO of Jage Media, MJ Unpacked, owner of one of the most glorious heads of hair in the cannabis industry.
So good.
Currently in the process of growing it out to donate to Locks of Love. Thank you for being you. Thank you for what you do and for just being the type of person that you are. It's always great to see you, to talk to you, and to be involved with you in whatever way we can. Man, thank you for your time. We're all in this
together. Absolutely love both you guys and what you're doing. So keep up the great work, and very honored and thankful for being on your show. Again, this is the funnest hour of my year usually when I get to hang out with you guys. So
love
definitely
you, George.
Goes off the rails, but we have fun.
We do.